Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Ambiguous Podcast Solution. I am your host again this week, Will Tarashuk, founder of Ambiguous Podcast Solution. Seems like I do a lot of these, but I guess I should. It's kind of my job. I am very excited because this week I'm going back to my roots, talking about movies with people I went to college with. So I am joined by Justin Chesney, who is the host of the Pitch This podcast, along with his co-host, Adam Stark, two Hofstra alumni. Gentlemen, welcome to the podcast. Justin, it's great to catch up with you. We had plenty of classes together.
Yeah, thanks, Will. I was really happy. I was really happy that you introduced. I thought you were introducing Adam as Adam Stark too, as in like the second one, because we did have an original Adam Stark and he wasn't good enough, so we had to fire him for the podcast.
We workshopped it. It didn't work out. It's fine.
Oh God. Well, guys, so you guys, your podcast is called Pitch This, where you are here to have some fun, make some weird ideas for your listeners to question your existence with. You talk about the happenings in the entertainment industry, play some games, but more importantly, present to the audience a classic show or film, and maybe even video games, but with a completely new premise or genre. So how did that come to be? First off, just to pitch this name, how you got that, where you got the idea, and just tell me about your show. Whoever wants to jump in first. Justin, let's start with you.
So I'll talk about the name, and then Adam can talk about conceptualization. I'll throw in that Adam and I had wanted to do a podcast for a while. I met this guy at college. He was pretty all right, and I said, "Hey, I think our voices would be like okay together." And he was like, "Yeah, I guess. Who are you again? Get out of my room at 6 a.m." And then so we started coming up with the concept of the idea. It was over 2 years ago now. But the name, I specifically remember being on the subway and just would have like a notes app open. This is back when I had an iPhone, and just like a list of Adam, you wouldn't have. Do you remember any of the names that I pitched to you? I was like, Adam. One of them was like Adam and Jay for an hour a day or something like that. It was not great. It was like, in the middle of jobs, I was like, oh, fuck, like what could be a fun, like catchy name? And there must have been 15 to 20 of them that we have written down. I don't remember how we actually decided on Pitch This, other than just we were like, yeah, that's the one, and we made graphics. And we had so on and so forth.
Okay, here's the list. I just found it on.
No freaking way! Oh no!
Yeah, let's hear it. Throw them out.
Here's a good one that really well encompasses our show and our mission. It's called Adam and Justin Do a Thing.
Yeah.
I feel like I should stop there. We got A and J for a half hour a day today, not a day, today, just today, and we never do the podcast again.
Right. We were we had to say that because then we'd be doing an episode every single day, and that would have been way too fucking much.
And that's when we thought that we somehow could manage what we wanted to do within a half hour show. Another very far-fetched endeavor. We have Look at This Podcast. Another very specific one. Pitch This, which was stupid.
Oh, that one's pretty shitty.
Yeah, it was terrible. We had First Pitch of the Game, which I feel like
you don't talk sports though.
Correct.
No, not at all.
Not at all.
Love it.
I think there was one time I was watching sports, and one of our guests looked over because I just had on, like, as we were recording, like in the background, I think it was tennis, and she called it some white people shit. So yeah.
It's safe to say we don't. I mean, here's the thing. Adam and I are pretty big sports fans, but we don't really do sports. So I don't know why I thought that would have been a good one.
We got Pitch Please, which it's not terrible.
It rolls off the tongue. I think the punniest podcast I ever interviewed was You Dad Me at Hello. It was like these two dads who talk pop culture and a lot of wrestling. So we got along just great. I love a good dad joke, but Pitch Please, that had to be taken.
Yeah, that was the other thing too, is we had to check and make sure that some of the big ones weren't taken already. I think there was another Pitch This, right? But it was only like
it was called like The Pitch or something, and like it was a short-lived. idea, which gave me a lot of fear for our pitch list, because I was like, is this going to pan out, or is it going to be another floating Twitter account that had action for about a month and 2 days? Just to condense the highlights of this list, we have Podcast and Chill. I like this one, Cinephiles and a Crocodile. I don't think we had the budget for the crocodile, which is why we didn't go with that one.
That was the big thing. We couldn't afford the crocodile.
I liked this one, Variety Joe's, because it kind of was a variety show. It still is.
Originally, yeah.
It's very interesting because like when I'm listening to your show, I'm like, you guys do so many things in 1 hour. It really is like a variety show because you got like your whole screenwriting thing, the history of the shows, and then like the mini games. It's just a variety. It's definitely a variety show, which is impressive.
But I love this. I forgot about this, Justin. And it makes, if anyone's listened to our season 2 finale, we have What If, a media podcast smorgasbord.
Did we really?
Was that really one that we What If? Yeah.
Holy shit. That's so funny. Will, I don't know how familiar are you caught up on like, I don't know, the Marvel TV shows and stuff?
No, like I mean,
okay.
So fun fact, okay. They're not bad movies, like by any stretch of the imagination. Every Marvel movie like ever made is in fact a good movie. But after the first Avengers in 2012, I checked out. I was just like, you know what? I'm good. I don't need any more. And then he proceeded to make 15 more. And I've seen most, if not all of them. And I'm like, yeah, they're great movies, but it's just like, I'm not first in line to go and see them, but I'm not stupid enough to say they're stupid. You know what I mean?
If you did, then we'd be talking. We would need to book a second hour for this show.
Yeah, you would have been like, sorry, we're gonna have to come on again next.
Like I think I caught Endgame. Okay, I didn't see any of them in theaters. The only one I actually saw in theaters was like the first Iron Man, Spider-Man, the first one. Not Homecoming, the one before that, the first one.
Homecoming.
Of Spider-Man's Homecoming, yeah.
Homecoming. Okay, so Homecoming with Tom Holland. Yep. And then I saw Black Panther because, of course, I had to see Black Panther in theaters. Yeah. But like other than that, I didn't see any of them in theaters.
All right,
and that's fair. So what we were saying is why that's funny. So there's a new series out right now.
Loki.
Called,
yeah.
What If?
What If?
So
right.
Our last episode is about Loki, but the idea with What If is it's all these different, basically fan fictions of different characters from the comics, right? So like what if there was a zombie apocalypse in the Marvel universe? Like, what if, Steve Rogers wasn't Captain America? Like things like that.
Yeah.
So one of the things we kind of talked about in our last script, which was arguably the most self-indulgent script we've ever done, and I'll take the blame for that. I wrote it. But like but it's our podcast is basically the same thing. It's where we take these shows. Like one of the first ideas that we had, and Adam wrote the script for it, was Finding Nemo as a film noir.
I highly recommend it. It's two-parter. It was a two-parter.
It's 2 episodes.
Check it out.
And that's already released, or is that coming in season 3?
Oh, it's out.
That's out.
That was in season 1, and I will say, we go back into our older episodes, and it's definitely, we've come a long way since then. I think Adam will agree with me with just how the show is run and the quality and everything. So, it's tough, I think, for me to go back and listen to certain episodes because, I'm like, oh man, we've come so far. But there's still a lot of great and funny moments from, especially like, scripts like that, and also familiar names that you might know, like Nick Jacobino comes on a lot. And I got a Brett and Proto just came on for the last. I don't know if you know Nick Proto or not.
If they're in WRHU, I knew them. So let me kick back to Hofstra a little bit now.
Oh wait, before you go there, I have one more to cap off all these names. The best one,
go ahead.
Better be really close. It's Justin. You should be so proud. I podcasted my pants. Carry on.
I remember that one. Why the hell did we even? All right. Anyway, continue, Will. Sorry.
So back in school, what were you guys' majors? Because you guys do the writing yourself. I was journalism, and we were all in the school of comms, so that could have meant literally anything.
Yeah.
Justin, what was your major?
Well, I was an acting major. I was in the School of Theater.
Okay.
So I was a BFA performance major for 4 years. Yeah, I don't know if you want me to elaborate on that at all, but that's,
what are you doing now? That's a follow-up question. Since graduating, what have you been up to? We haven't talked really since graduation. I'm embarrassed to say that's true.
No. I mean, listen, that's that's life too. We all get busy with things. But I lived in New York for a few years after graduation. I was performing in a few theatrical performances out there, and it was really great. But I decided I wanted to work more in film and television. And so I moved out last year out to Los Angeles. So I live out here now in Adam's home. Technically, we switched because he's from Los Angeles.
Yeah, he kicked my parents out of their house.
It's my house.
I don't know where they are. I still don't know where my parents are.
And not going to tell you.
All right.
Now I still act and I do that stuff, but I'm also pursuing to try and become a screenwriter as well.
Okay.
For screen.
Well, let me tell you, I'm glad you started a podcast because I mean, it's something you better put on your resume. I mean, it's something I tell anybody I interview. And even like if what they do podcast about has nothing to do with their job, I'm like, you better put that on your resume. Cause like I started podcasting my sophomore year at Hofstra. And every single job interview I've ever had, they ask me about the podcast I put on my resume. Guaranteed. So Adam, what did you major in and what have you been doing since?
So I majored in television production at Hofstra. At first it was a Bachelor of Science, I think it was. Then I switched to a BA, making room for a minor in philosophy because I was so full of myself. It was a good time. But I since then have been working because I'm originally from Los Angeles, like Justin said, but I've since then stayed in New York. Been working in New York City at ABC. So I've been working at ABC.
Nice.
Yeah. And I'm still at ABC, so it's great. So I'm doing we've been doing the podcast on the side, kind of for what, two years now, right, Justin? Basically.
Yeah, over 2 years
over
now.
2 years, yeah.
I think we talked about it somewhere around episode 45, 46. I feel like we hit that 2-year mark. Which was a crazy feeling, I mean, we did take a bit of a hiatus in there during quarantine last year, and we felt it was best to just take a second and revamp. But after I moved out here, we switched. We used to record all in the same room together with our guests and everything like that. Obviously that wasn't possible anymore, so we switched it up, bought new equipment, and now we do it all remotely, including our guests and everything from wherever they're recording from.
Yeah, but, I mean, same here, man. I've been doing most of my podcasts remote. When I did my wrestling show at Hofstra, we would do it, at my house. My friends would come over. We'd pass one microphone around between 3 people. It was a nightmare. Do not recommend doing that at all.
No, it's not worth it.
And eventually, it's like I'm a broke college kid. Eventually, I'll upgrade, and I upgraded. Now, I since started a different podcast. My co-host was in Tennessee, which has since ended, and now, since COVID started, here I am with a loopable lava lamp backgrounds on vMix. It's incredible, like what the internet can do for you.
Yeah.
We have the technology.
Well, I mean, and aside from the podcast, now we're doing the Twitch streams too. We're trying to branch out and produce different media within the brand of Pitch This. But going back, like Justin said, aside from pitching the names, all the wonderful names we had, potential candidates for our show name, it kind of started off with me consistently sending stupid ideas to a group chat that included Justin. Because Justin and I knew each other at Hofstra for a couple of years. He obviously was very close to a lot of other theater kids who I was friends with as well. So we kind of eventually, our paths were crossing several times, but I think at a certain point, I think the time I really knew you well was when I made you do that short film for me. I don't even know what it was for.
Gonna bring it up.
Great. If you need B-roll, Will, I highly recommend this piece.
Don't you freaking dare.
Oh no, send it. Cause if it's anything podcast related and we talk about it, I'll throw it over. That's just better content, baby. Send it my way. Send me a WeTransfer as long as it's 2 gigabytes.
It has nothing to do with the podcast, but it's just a short film. I still don't know what the assignment was, but I'm just so glad.
I'm not convinced that you actually had to do it for a class. I think you're going to make me look like an idiot for for a half hour there.
I'm going to pretend it's running as B-roll, but we had Justin. It had to be a silent film. It couldn't have any dialogue. So we made him do a really peppy dance and then make him look like the type of like orientation, RA person, like, you know, that kind of high energy.
Which I was.
And yeah, that was the best part. And then we had him, we had him return to his room and then just change his whole outfit. Because perfectly enough, my roommate at the time has all death metal posters and stuff like that in his room. So we just stole one of his shirts, put on eyeshadow and lipstick, and had him just like shred the entire room in the paradigm shift of these two characters within Justin. So I also, we're totally off the actual story of how Pitch This was made, but I just randomly came across it on Dropbox like a few years later, and I was like, wow, I got to make sure this stays because it belongs in a museum at some point. Yeah,
belongs in a museum.
Yes, but back to the actual podcast stuff. I just at one point shared that idea to the chat, which usually when I share an idea to the chat, it's just like, haha, or Adam, are you okay? Like, go get some help or something. But Justin actually reached out and said, hey, dude, you know, I really like this idea. And I don't necessarily want you to just let it go. Like, if you're interested in doing something, I'm in. And that doesn't really happen often, you know, having someone not just say like, this is a great idea, but also be like, I'm down to do it. Because for me, when I was in high school, like I got into television production because I did like a live version of like SNL at my high school. There weren't like a lot of student-led productions. And the only thing that made it work was that you had people who were interested in the work, because I couldn't pay them, but they did it because they loved it. And that's what made it so good. So to see Justin have an interest in the same idea that I even, you know, for a moment felt the passion for, made me more passionate about it, and has led to where we are now with the show. So, you know, we kind of did the planning. We met a few times and got the equipment. And then every week we would meet. At first it was at my apartment when I was still living in the city, but then it moved to Justin's apartment. And until, you know, we kind of like Justin said, we took a bit of a break a little bit after quarantine started. And since then we've been remote. Which also has its perks aside from, you know, there's always the Zoom delay thing that sucks, and it's hard to pick up on the social cues and everything. And we've tried to do everything we can to kind of remedy that. There's still those little things missing, but in a way, the production value has gone up in the show.
So what was the hardest part when you first started? Like those first 3-4 months where, you know, you were just getting started, because you guys have natural chemistry. I can see it through my TV screen. Like you two just bounce off each other, like you're playing handball at recess. So like, what was the hardest part of actually starting? Was it the tech side? Was it the editing side? Was it structuring the show? Lay it all out. What made you not sleep at night?
Well, that was mostly the anxiety, but that's a personal thing. So Adam and I would go out to the during recess and play handball, and we would just, you know, pitch how we wanted to
kick his ass.
He would kick my ass a lot. I'm really bad at handball. I think know Adam might answer separately, because you know, Adam does a lot more of the editing of the audio and everything like that afterwards. So, you know, if we have guests on that end up, you know, having kind of shitty audio, or you know, for whatever reason there's a lot of disturbance in the audio, like that's Adam's hell that he has to deal with. And I'm like, how you doing, bud? You know, and like, so that's all I'm doing in the background. But I think in the beginning, the main thing is that the only things that we knew was that we were going to write a script for each episode. You know, like I think everything else was like, you know, we wanted to do fun facts. We also at the time were like, I think in the first episode we started where we're like, the first segment is going to be news about like the entertainment industry in general. And obviously that like didn't last because it was too much to, you know, put into one show.
Yeah.
So it was all just, I mean, it grew with us, but in the beginning we just had no idea what it was going to be other than the scripts itself. You know, I think like that, even like the first 2 episodes, I think we recorded the first 2 scripts we recorded with the same people, right, Adam? Like
yeah, we somehow thought that was going to be a half hour to 45-minute show. having a news segment, guests talking about the script, doing the script, and doing a game. We thought we were going to be able to fit all of that into one episode or something.
Next thing you know, it's like 90 minutes in, and you're like, shit.
Yeah, we way overproduced it. It was way too much. And like that was the first thing to really, when every show pilot in a way sucks.
Of course,
like,
as it should. As it should.
I mean, it's just, you don't know exactly what works until you really put it out there and you have the people doing it. And it's just like, look how dry the office is in the US offices in the first episode. Like, good Lord, imagine if they were just like, this is fine, let's do the whole series like this. That's what happens to pilots. They change. That's a good thing. So we eventually we got rid of the news segment because also, we want people to go back and listen to the older episodes, even though the sound quality might be a little less at par with the current ones, which is another thing, we had to figure out and evolve. We wanted to, because they're so topical with the news segments. We didn't want that to be the first thing you hear when you tune in. Exactly. Yeah. You don't want to tune in and the first thing you hear is news, be like, I don't think this is recent, and then you're just not interested in it because you're not relating to it in any way.
Freddie Mercury's been dead for years.
Yeah, I know. I still regret reporting that on the first episode.
Yeah.
So that's something we got rid of, and we tried to kind of just work around that because we also the fun facts too was another big thing. We were kind of back and forth between how much do we want to focus on the fun facts about the show that we're featuring in the script. Because I love the fun facts, and sometimes it's just a lot, or it's it depends how long the script is or how long the game is. So it's just kind of finding a balance now between every episode, because every episode is just unique with the content that we're creating for it, and also just the chemistry between us and the guests as well. They all come into play with just how the show is going to play out in every segment now.
Yeah, because I've listened to a lot of podcasts for a lot of years, and yours is very unique. And I don't say that often about a lot of podcasts I talk to on here. Every now and then someone will surprise me, but you have like just a banter with your guests to start off, the screenplay, pretty much it's like a trivia game. What other segments do you have? Like, do you keep the same segments in every order, or do you switch it up? Like, do you do like a segment every 3 episodes, or is it kind of the same thing, rinse, wash, repeat?
So we've had, for the most part, we've fallen into, I think, the structure that's worked the show now, where, we come in, Ab and I riff in the beginning. Sometimes it's hit or miss, depending on whatever we talk about. We bring the guests in, we talk with them. We found that that's a good way to also just break the ice with them in case they're a little, quieter or anything like that. That's been good. Just talking about something random, right? Like there was, we did our Garfield furries episode, which is might not be the best one to talk about to sell this show.
Don't lead off of that.
Well, no, because I'm talking about, we had, and just the discussion in the beginning of it ended up being like the, logistics of money in the ghost world, and like who's on the ghost dollar and who's on like the ghost $5 bill, and like and everything like that, random shit that had nothing to do with Garfield, obviously, but by doing that it got everyone into this flow that I think worked really well for the rest of the episode. Then we have things like so we have that, we bring in the guests, yada yada yada. We move into our regular facts, which we've kind of started to lovingly call the fax machine, which is just, a little bit of, general background of the whatever we're talking about that day. And then we do the fun facts, things that people, generally probably don't know about the production, or like silly little things that we found out that we wanted to share. Then we move into the script itself. Now actually what we've started doing as well is we've started putting in a spot for where we hope we'll eventually have advertisements, but we've been writing our own. So I don't know if there was in the Blues Clues episode or not. I think maybe.
I think so. Yeah, there should have been.
So we started doing those, and then the script, and then we have our guests advertise for themselves, like whatever they're into,
plugs, of course.
Yeah, little plugs, stuff like that. And then we do our little game at the end. And all of that stuff was like stuff we had to figure out how, it worked. Like we moved the plugs before the game because we were like, okay, no one's going to want to listen to plugs if they know that that's the last, like there's nothing else left in the episode, right?
Yeah.
So we moved them there so that people would listen to the plugs for the, our guests. And then you also get to listen to whatever the game, the content after that. But even for our season finale, we decided to switch it up because I talked to Adam and I said, hey, I think this script has a heavy hitting ending. I think because it's our season finale, the way that it ends is a nice like final note and send off for the season instead of having the plugs and the game and everything like that. I think it's a stronger ending.
Yeah.
So we will change it up, when it feels right. But I think I speak for both of us when I say that like what it has evolved into structure wise, we try to keep to each episode because we've started to find that that's what works, right?
Yeah. For me, like I think the logic behind it is, because we're here, the episode is typically named after whatever the script is called for it. So if we're going to talk about Blue's Clues or SpongeBob or whatever, or unfortunately furries and Garfield, we want to lead off with the fun facts because then there's personally, from a production standpoint, there's not really too much of a point to talk about after doing the script. Like it kind of feels like we've done the big grand part of it. So the game is fun. I love doing the games. What we did when quarantine started was we did kind of like a video live show, which it's on our Facebook, and it's also uploaded as a podcast episode for anyone who wants to listen. But we did those live shows, and for the most part, they were just games. Because we have, the people we have who we also have the pleasure of calling our friends. We have on as guests are just hilarious, or they're so good at improv and all this stuff. So the games are great. So having that at the end of the show after the script read is just, I think, the perfect way to kind of like unwind from the episode. And it's still, I sometimes I hear praise specifically for the games not because like the game went well, but Justin and I have done a pretty good job at coming up with these like original game concepts too.
Well, I wanted to talk about that, but Will, do you have? I don't know if you had a segment later about talking about our games or not, or if we can chat about that because that is something I wanted to bring up.
No, throw it down, man. Whatever you guys want to talk about, we can sidebar. Everyone want to sidebar. So that was my original question. Like, what other segments do you have? Right now, we're on the structure part of your podcast. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Next, we're going on the host. I hope I don't start a fight with the next segment, but we'll see what happens. So yeah, but Justin, tell me. Other games you got, other games you scrapped, other games you want to bring to the table. What do you got, man?
Yes,
I'm very interested.
So I think when we're talking about segments, right, that we do switch out, that's when we're talking about our games, right? Those are the ones that definitely keep it a bit more like different, every single episode. And there are definitely ones that we love and we've used a lot more. There's one that I came up with called Letter Bashed, and basically what we do with that is we go to the popular media rating site Letterboxd. I don't know if you've heard it or not, but it's kind of like social media for rating movies and reviewing movies. And people go on there, and you leave reviews for things. And what we do is we go on and we take the very worst reviews for very popular movies. Like it's half star to 5-star reviews. So we only take half-star and 1-star reviews.
Oh my God.
Read them to our guests and we have them try and guess what the movie they're talking about is just based on the most shitty reviews.
And for the record, sometimes the review is just, Jesus Christ, I fucking hate this movie. And that's the whole review. And we somehow have to decipher which film it is.
That usually, so what we do is like with that one is it gets harder to easier. So like,
right.
And there's always a subject, right? So like we try to like adhere to, so if we're doing like a superhero, like whatever the subject of that episode is a superhero thing, like we might do, the subject of Letter Bash is only superhero movies, right? So at least you're like, limited to certain things that you're thinking about, right? It's like not like, you also have to think about sports films and other things like that. It's just, we'll tell you like what you're thinking of. So we do that one a decent amount. I love Madalogs is another one we do where basically it's like Mad Libs, but we take famous monologues from movies, take out keywords, and then ask our guests to replace them with adjectives, nouns, things like that. And then without them knowing what it's going to be. So like they don't know like what the famous monologue is. And then Adam runs this one a lot, and then he'll put it in and then send it to us, the whole monologue, and then we have to do a dramatic reading of that monologue from whatever that is. I think my favorite one from this past season, you know which one I'm talking about. But we did an episode about Punked. Remember Punked?
Yeah, Ashton Kutcher.
Yeah. But we did like, what if Punked was in like Victorian England?
Oh my God. Okay. I'm going to pause right there.
Okay.
Who came up with that? How do you think about it? How do you take Blue's Clues and go, you know what? SVU. Who out of the two of you is the crazier one?
That's a tough question.
That's toughy because there's a lot of times that Adam will just send me random shit in the middle of the day and be like, is this anything? I've been very good about, like, Adam will send me an idea and then I'll come up with a title for him. I know that's a few times that like that's happened. But it goes back and forth. We both have, these ideas, and we alternate episode by episode who writes the script.
Okay.
So it goes back and forth between us. So we share the responsibility that way. Punked was me, I believe.
It was. Well, you initially wanted to do an episode of Punk with the game, because it was right around when it came out, Cyberpunk, and you just sent me the name. You're just like Cyberpunk. And I replied and I said, that's a funny name, but is there any actual meat to that idea? And you're like, I'll come back to you on that. And then we kind of changed that one up.
Well, because we ended up doing the Cyberpunk episode separately, and then I still wanted to do a Punked episode, so I came up with the, what if it took place in Victorian England?
Yeah.
So that is the big thing, like Adam said earlier, a big part of that is our what if, right? Like we literally just say, like, what if, Foster's Home also took in fan fiction, and like, stuff like that for Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, right? Like, what if Finding Nemo was a film noir? In the first season, we also, one of my favorite concepts was, what if Elle Woods from Legally Blonde was a vampire hunter, and stuff like that. So like we did Legally Blade.
That's incredible.
That's one of the best names.
So sometimes it starts with the title. There's times that also Adam has sent me like a title, and I'm like, okay, but is there anything to that? And he's like, no. And then we're like, okay, so let's like go back. And I do the same thing, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes it starts with the title. Sometimes it's literally just one of us being like, hey, I'd love to do an episode about How I Met Your Mother, or I'd love to do an episode about this. And then we'll think of the concept afterwards, just because it's something that we want to talk about.
What if you did like a crossover of like The Godfather and The Little Rascals? Call it Little Godfather.
That's great.
Yeah, there's something there, We haven't done either of those things yet, for sure. So we've already started,
Mob Boss Alfalfa.
There you go.
That's great.
Love it. Okay, so you guys split the writing. Justin takes 1 week, Adam takes the other week. Okay, I answered my next question. So you as hosts, because anytime there's a podcast with two main hosts, someone has to take lead. Someone needs to be the first mic, and someone else has to be the second mic. I mean, you guys can share the power and switch off each episode, but like, who takes lead? Who takes charge?
Well, the way, like Justin said, because we alternate on the script, we've kind of, we also alternate on the game. Those are like the two big segments in the show, aside from the fun facts.
Mm-hmm.
So whoever wrote the script is typically going to be, well, in the past we've had that, they also get the fun facts, and they share the fun facts and all that stuff. They're also usually reading the stage directions for the script and actually acting in the script,
right?
Just because they, while we read it, we're, that person is kind of directing our cast, because we don't really have a chance to do a read through prior to the taping.
Cold.
We try, and it's good to keep it cold, because sometimes we write just extremely shocking things that we cannot live without seeing the person read it live to us and react.
Yeah, it's so genuine to get that reaction from people sometimes, right? Like, I mean, think with our last episode too, like Adam was like, I don't want to read this ahead of time. And I was like, that's for the best, I think. And like, because of that, sometimes, depending on the script, like that also gets us these really beautiful moments of people that'll read something, funny that we wrote and then break, right? And sometimes the breaks are even funnier than like what we wrote. But
I made a person recently read the line "big fat donk." I enjoyed watching him say that.
Yeah, that was Bowser.
That was Bowser from Smash Bros. Yeah, having the person read.
Smash Bros. Episode. If Smash Bros. Was a dating game.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
But so I think, that goes back to our structure thing, right? And the evolution of it. We have figured out which parts of the episodes the two of us are better at leading, right? So for the most part, Adam brings in the show, every time, welcome back to Pitch This Podcast, and like everything like that. And then I jump in, right after that. Things like I do the research for the fun facts now, but I, somewhere in the, towards the beginning of season 2, I think, I told, like Adam said, we used to do it where the person who wrote the script, did the fun facts as well, and just kind of controlled that episode. And then whoever didn't write the script did the game for that week. So we do also alternate who runs the game. But that being said, I said, I told Adam, I said, hey, listen, just listening to some of our old episodes, I think that the episodes where you do the fun facts during the fun facts are stronger. And so I said, why don't we split this responsibility? I'll do the research every week for the fun facts, but I think it's better for you to read it. And I think that's been the best way to go. Oh my God, excuse me. So far, with how that's, how that is. And that's another thing that's developed from the beginning. It wasn't, always like that, but we figured it out. And so he usually leads the fun facts, and then whoever, wrote the script leads the script, and then whoever did the game leads the game.
I'll say too, a big part of changing that part of the format was, we can't really do too much collaboration in terms of actually editing the show, especially since we're remote now. So I've been the person to do the editing of the show. Mm-hmm. So sometimes that is, way more time consuming than the pre-planning or the recording and everything like that. Sure. Justin was also kind of helping me take a load off by taking on the fun fact research for the show as well. But we can talk more about post-production later on, but that was also another key reason for changing that part of the format. I think it helps too, and it definitely has a good format too. I think part of my dynamic with Justin is that I am a talking rock, and Justin has that a lot of more energy than I do. I think we have different forms of humor in how we in how we interact, and just in our basic way of speaking. So I think when we find the way of communicating with each other, and frankly, aside from the script and the game, not even the game, I guess aside from the script, the rest of the show is, in a way, it's improv. It's like it's a hybrid of improv and scripted comedy, which is one of my favorite things about it. So Justin and I definitely have a funny dynamic with that, because sometimes I'm just like, good God, where the hell am I? And Justin is just ready to ride the furry train back home.
Yeah, me.
Most nights.
Not to toot our own horn, I guess, but Will, going back to what you said about us being I think I agree with you. That's one of the reasons why I'm proud of our show, is that I think that it's pretty unique in what it is. But one of the things as well is that I think that it's hard to say that one of us is first or second mic. We've kind of developed this way of reading each other for the most part. Yeah. And it's always difficult with different guests. You have to, like Adam and I know our mannerisms pretty well now, but having a new guest on every week is also challenging, because you don't know. There have been certain games and scripts where I know both of us have written or planned differently, because we know the type of person that we're having on, right? So maybe Mad Libs isn't the right game for this person that we're having on this week, because they're not, their strong suit isn't that, but we know another game that, would bring that, whatever it is, out of them. And so I don't know if that answers your question. I think we're pretty equal in how it goes. And like Adam said, it's very improvised.
That's perfect. That's very hard to pull off, because you got to keep your ego in check. I'm gonna go back to my wrestling podcast too. I was first, I came up with the idea. My original co-host only last 10 episodes, and here we are 6.5 years later, with these different people. So when I was lead, we would butt heads So be like, well, no, like this is my show, like this is my thing. Then eventually after a few little while, I stepped down, and then Ricky, who was virtually the second mic, became first mic. So I follow his lead, like, I follow his outline. He leads the show and does all this thing. So it can be very hard to kind of just make that mix. But the fact that you guys just split responsibility like that, I'm going to keep using the word impressive, because, and you guys are friends. So it makes even things harder.
Let's not go too far. Yeah.
All right, fine. You're business associates. Let's put it that way.
That's fine. Yeah.
But let's pivot on to your guests, because this opens a whole new can of worms, because it's almost like you guys kind of create this world of like kayfabe, with this like, this hidden world, but you got to bring your guests in and make sure they're kind of in on the bit. So how do you prep your guests?
I'll say this, the one thing that really helps us, and sometimes we do tailor a show, or we try to make a show out of nothing, just off the fact that we know a certain guest is a huge fan of like something.
Right.
Like I think in the most recent case,
oh, never mind.
We have, that's the best example. We have, if you listen to our Survivor episode, which is Survivor Sesame Island, from season 1, our friend, Brett Savoy, is the biggest Survivor fan. Like, it's so crazy that I bet with Justin prior to the episode, and we had the competition happen on the episode, that Brett could name any winner, and I even think any runner-up from any season on Survivor.
Wow.
And he did. Like, Justin just after like we reached the threshold of the bet, he just kept rattling them off, and Brett just knows them. So it's a situation like that where we know someone is like a huge fan, or like we'll ask someone to come on and we ask them, like, are you a fan? Do you know anything about Star Wars? Like, if we're not going to have someone on for like a big thing like Star Wars or Marvel, like if you don't know that stuff, you're probably just not going to have as much fun with it, because you're not relating to the base of the script. So we try to make sure we at least bring on the guest. But if the guest says, I'm not into this, but I'm into this, like Brett would say, like, I'm into Survivor, or I knew that already. We'll try to make the episodes because we know once we have that person on to talk about Survivor, or to like play out like the way that the episode is, we know they're going to have so much fun with it, because that's just, they probably like fantasize about being on the actual show themselves, Right. And then there's times where we strike gold. Like Justin did a Blue's Clues script, and our two guests just are huge Blue's Clues fans, and they just had so much to talk about it. And that's a big thing.
That was necessarily, we didn't really like establish that beforehand with them. Like we just wanted to do, that was one of the episodes, like we were saying earlier, where we came up with the concept and said, okay, we're definitely doing it. And we just figured enough people, have general knowledge of Blue's Clues that, whoever we have on will be able to push through with that one particularly, right? Yeah. Like Survivor's a little bit more risky. You can't, like, not everyone watches Survivor, as popular as it is. But like Blue's Clues, like generally you at least know, what it is and, everything like that. It just so happened that, we happened to find two fucking Blue's Clues, like, connoisseurs that knew so much, like almost more than I did, and I had to do research on the show, which happens sometimes, and it's really beautiful when it does happen.
Yeah. It's a big part of it for sure.
Definitely a lot of research has to go into it, and they're probably sitting back like, I gotta do more research. I mean, I'm shocked that Brian Cudina knew that much about Blue's Clues. But if you ever got Lost, Prison Break, Lord of the Rings, or The Simpsons, I'm your guy.
Oh,
I am your guy.
Listen,
I can go off.
Lord of the Rings will definitely happen someday. That's something like I think that keeps slipping my mind personally. The thing with The Simpsons, it's just like, what can we do that they haven't done? Like,
that's true.
Once, like, we need to know enough about The Simpsons to say, like, I am confident that if I write this script, that The Simpsons will not put out an episode that is exactly this within the next 2 weeks before the podcast comes out.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the hard thing with The Simpsons, but definitely those other ones. Definitely Lord of the Rings. That will have to happen one.
Yeah,
one day.
If we do Lord of the Rings, we're going to do it movie by movie. There's no, like,
no, you have to.
And we'll put out director's cuts that are like 5 hours longer than
right.
Yeah.
We'll have the director's cut where we talk, the sort of third movie, we don't talk about Saruman, but in the director's cut, we just talk only about Saruman.
Yeah.
Love it. So how do you find your guests? Because a lot of these people, I'm assuming, are people or friends, but and a reoccurring guest, but eventually that well is going to run dry. Then what?
Well, we've Adam and I are not to toot our own horns, but we're pretty social people and know a decent amount of people. So that's been, it helps when we overlap for sure of someone that we know, right? Because going into it, we both know those people, and we tend to be, the interaction's a bit better. But there are plenty of times that, it might be someone that I know specifically, or that Adam knows specifically that I'm not, as familiar with. And those episodes, it takes a second to find where our groove is there, because obviously not all of us know each other. So that's been the nice thing so far. We're 50 episodes in, and like we don't, here's the thing. If this podcast ever gets to a place that is so successful that we can have, big names on and stuff, so
like Barney or James Bond.
Yeah. Like James Bond could come on.
Yeah.
None of the James Bond actors. James Bond himself.
No. Mr. Bond.
Mr. Bond. James Bond.
Barry Bonds.
Barry Bonds.
From the
that's always a follow-up question, like who's a dream guest?
Well, that's what I'm saying. So like if we, I told Adam in the beginning of this, I was like, if I saw this getting to the peak of what it is, imagine doing a Lord of the Rings episode that we wrote, with Elijah Wood, like as like getting to, and then of course we wouldn't, cast him as Frodo, he'd be someone else. So that's what I'm saying, right? Like that would be incredible.
You gotta do like a spin-off where like you do a spin-off of Lord of the Rings and Wilfred. So Elijah Wood,
or
the dog,
Spy Kids 3 and Lord of the Rings.
Oh my god!
He's on for 2 seconds.
So we're just gonna. So when we get Elijah Wood on, we're just gonna do a culmination of all of Elijah Wood's material, and we're just gonna call it Into the
Woods. Yeah.
It's just Frodo and Wilfred walking through the forest looking for Tom Bombadil. Because Wilfred's like, no, I swear he exists, and Frodo's like, no, he's not. Shut up, and they go find him.
It's going to be the Elijah Woods crossover event of the century. That's all I'm saying. We're there. Mark your calendars.
All right.
It will happen.
The multi-woods.
So Elijah Wood, dream guest. Love it. So how much time goes into one episode from idea, whereas, okay, this is a great idea. Let's start writing it out. Let's record. Let's edit. Let's distribute. What's that whole process like? I hope it's not 10 months.
No. I mean, you're talking about for one episode, right?
One episode.
Yeah. I mean, it could happen, it could be an idea that we had months ago and just never like fully baked it, or it can be something that we're just like, I mean, I've had an idea and 2 days or a day before I'm very chaotic. So like I'll have an idea and a day or two before the show, I'll just be like, I don't like this. And I throw it out and we just change the whole thing. The thing is too, like sometimes bookings can come down late just because people's schedules are all over the place. I mean, going back to the thing about briefly about the guests is that, a lot of these people are either they're from Hofstra or they're people that Justin worked with while like in New York acting. So they're also actors. They're also, their schedules are kind of all over the place too. I will say another nice thing on the other side of that is that we kind of make friends with whether we knew them at like a little bit or not at all. Like we've made like amazing friends. Like our quote unquote third co-host, Jeannie Hagman. Like I didn't know who she was, but she's like one of my favorite people now. After having her on, even just like once. And like I know Brian Kudina and Justin, I think, are a lot closer friends after the times that he's been on.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But going back to the planning, it could take. We kind of give ourselves like the week to really put it all down and write the script in that and then in that week we record it, and then I kind of, for me on my end, I kind of crash the post-production within this like the weekend. Like I'll probably need more than 1 day, because we do it now with ISO mics. We tell people record your microphone separately, send it to me so I can now work. I have more liberty editing. It's my favorite. That's my favorite thing about doing this remotely, is the liberty of editing it and making sure just like it's all cohesive and makes sense between every person, especially when there's a delay. I can kind of tweak that. But
I will say, I mean, you remember, I mean, especially season 1, when we started the show, we were doing an episode a week. And that was wild. How we even, I don't know how we didn't just end it all doing that, because that was crazy. You know, like the amount of stuff that we were doing, the amount of research, like we thought it would be fine, you know, because we were switching off weeks of who was writing, right? So like, even though we were doing an episode a week, you were really only writing 2 scripts a month. But with our, you know, our lives and like everything like that, it was just too much. And one of the biggest things was specifically was booking guests, you know, like having people every single week. So we've gotten now, you know, now we release every other Monday, our episode, and it's become a lot less stressful than before. I will say, I feel like there's a lot less work to be done before the episode, quite honestly, nowadays, because it runs so, you know, like our system of doing it runs so smoothly that now it's just like coming up with the concept, making people are booked, what game are we doing? That's it, you know, like, and then, you know, usually we record either like a Friday or a Monday. But everything else is afterwards with Adam editing and my, you know, I write the, for the most part, I write the fake ads that we've been doing. That's post.
And the sound effects for the script.
Sound effects. Oh,
that's the first thing
that's
I
another
edit.
thing,
Yeah, that's the first thing I'll edit is I'll make sure all the, you know, just the linear editing, just the voices and all that stuff and all the takes we choose to keep are in. I send that straight to Justin. He will then listen through it and decide. He'll basically produce all the sound effects for it, instrumentals, any other fun like sounds we think will add to the comedic effect, and also just make it more immersive. It's something that Justin's definitely wanted to do for a long time, but it was definitely something we could not do because it was hard enough to produce an episode a week when we were doing it every week. So once we got to a place where we were comfortable doing it remotely, it was definitely something where I said, you know, I'm all for it, but I just cannot conceptualize myself having the time to edit the entire show and also do the sound effects. So he's like, that's fine, I'll do it. So I send that to him. I continue the rest of the edit. He sends that to me with just like time codes with every sound effect. He sends me all the files. I bring it in. I just go down that list, and it all makes sense. It's really kind of a well-oiled machine with barely any hiccups. And then I just finish the rest of the show, which I usually give myself the weekend to do, which is sometimes not enough time. But I also want to make sure I listen back to the episode at least once or twice before I put out like the fine cut for Justin to publish.
And like one of my favorite things is like, you know, he'll send me the final cut before we actually publish, but like Adam, there's a lot of times too that like, you know, I'll send Adam all the sounds and everything like that, but like a lot of it's just like me, you know, playing our audio on one side of my screen and like, you know, a YouTube video on another side to like try and be like, okay, is this the sound I'm going for? Yada, yada, yada. So I'll send everything to Adam. Like, I don't know. I'll admit that I don't know how to do all the audio, you know, engineering and stuff like that. Like that's all Adam. So like I'm just more of, you know, I do the creative stuff, but I once, you know, sit down, a lot of the stuff is just not me. So when I get to hand my stuff to Adam and I say, this is how I would love for this script to sound, and then he gives it back to me and it just is that way every single time, I'm like, this is awesome. Like I'm so happy to hear, like, you know, it's so fun to hear it as a more produced, you know, show, and what Adam can do with that is incredible.
You know, and that it's such a big weight off your shoulders, because like I wish I had someone else here in my apartment help me do this, because like, I'm doing all this live switching, all this audio, all by myself. This is like a job of 3 people to do. Man. So like I do have editors. I'm gonna hand this off to like our business partner who handles all of our editing, who has like a professional studio and everything. It's like I could do it, but it's like I have more interviews to do. I got my 9-to-5 job to do. I have so many other things I have to do. This guy has equity in our company, so he's gonna do it. You know what I mean? Yeah. So like it's helpful. Everyone needs an Adam. Everyone needs an editor.
I will say the other crazy thing about when we were still both living in New York City, because I lived in New York City for like a year. I lived in Washington Heights, my El Suanito while I was there. So yeah, I even gentrified the main word from the film. But when we were doing that, we were right next to each other. We were a subway stop away from each other. So we would have the people come to either of our apartments and record. But at a certain point, I moved out. I moved to Long Island. So I was now taking the railroad and the subway to get home, which was from my work was like an hour and a half. From Justin's apartment was basically a 2-hour commute. And we would record on Wednesday night. So I would go from work. I didn't know when work would end. And we also had to make sure our guests could get there on time. So we had to have kind of a later recording. I would get home at like, I don't know, midnight or something. And then I'd have to go wake up early again for the next day. So it was a grind, but it was like, I didn't realize it till like later on, but I was like, this is what they mean by like a hustle. Like, this is like really like working hard to do something because you care about it. And I never think about it as, it's kind of like you said in the beginning, like put this on your resume. Like, I don't really think about it as like, this is at the grade of being on a resume, but especially comparing our last season to our first season or the first episode ever, like you can hear the difference of how it's evolved in terms of quality and content and everything. There's just a lot of things to be proud about for it, for sure. But that makes it worth the grind. It's just caring about the work.
Yeah. I mean, it's a job. It really is a legitimate job. You guys both have a bunch of extra things to do. It's a well-oiled machine, like you said. And, there's just more responsibilities, but is it just you two, or is there like a third silent partner you've been keeping from you this whole time?
Alcohol.
Oh, that's a great partner.
Shots, baby. I mean, generally we will bring on like a drink or something, sometimes during the show, or especially when we stream now, we'll have a drink or something like that while we do it. But, we're not like, it's not like we're trash during the show, but it does help.
One time I drank a little too much and I was like starting to slur my words, and I was like, I don't think this is good audio anymore. But
there was the Foster's Home episode I told you about.
Right? Yeah, that was wonderful.
Listen, Will, here's the thing. I live in California and weed is legal. I'm going to start by saying that, right? All right. So here's the thing. I was having trouble sleeping. My roommate, Jared, works for a dispensary. And I said, Jared, I'm having trouble sleeping. Can you get me something? And he brings me home these edibles. But they're mostly just like sleep aids, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, here's the thing. This takes like 2 hours to kick in. So like, take it way before you're planning on going to bed. So we're doing this Foster's Home episode. I had to get up early the next day. So I was like, all right, our episode recordings are usually just about an hour and a half. I'm going to take it right before. So that way, as soon as we're done, I can just hopefully knock out and go to bed. That motherfucker lied to me, or my body is very unique because they kicked in about an hour. And the last half hour of that episode is absolutely wild to me.
Oh, God.
I could not stop laughing at every single thing people said. It was wild. And I will never do that again.
Hey man, it happens. I'll tell you a story off air. It happens to the best of us. Not on a podcast, but it happens. It happens. I'll just leave it at that. It happens. So with all the work that goes into the show, is that a reason why you guys do a season format? Just kind of give yourself a break, get a few episode head start? Because a season format for a podcast can be, it can break your podcast because you build up an audience, a following, and then even if they know a season's coming, their attention span is just gone.
Yeah, that was my biggest fear. That's always my fear when we're in the middle of a small break like this. But the thing that we're constantly trying to do is kind of diversify our content on different platforms. So we were on break for a little bit, but we're kind of coming back now on Twitch. Which we wanted to do earlier on. We kind of took a break from that, but we're trying now to come back on Twitch and do like a weekly stream with just like random games that can let us still be funny and produce contents for our social media, because that's the best way of reaching out to people and getting new listeners. And the hard thing with podcasts,
keeping the name relevant.
Yeah,
too. I mean,
for sure.
Big thing, yeah.
And with a podcast, it's hard to unless we're doing like what you're doing with the setup with all the visual stuff. It's hard to kind of put out social media content that will grab people's attention if it's just audio, even if you visualize the waveforms, unfortunately. So doing the Twitch streams are a great way of kind of diversifying the media. And then we tried to also come up with like original TikTok ideas. For the longest time in season one of our sign-offs was TikTok is on the way. and people didn't believe me, but it happened.
They do actually have it. Yeah. I think the season break, you know, one of the things is that, you know, we do need, while this, you know, we both of us love doing this, but it is something that, you know, we do for free.
Yes.
And, you know, doesn't bring us any money so far. So the thing is that, you know, it is a lot of our personal time and everything that we put into it. And until it maybe does, you know, man, it'd be awesome if, you know, someday it does get to a place that, you know, we can monetize and spend more time on it. Right.
Yeah.
Then the need for a season break might be less, or even just, you know, we won't need to do it anymore. But I think at this point also with just, you know, Adam has August off from his work, so he travels. So it works out for us, and it lets us also rejuvenate ourselves and come back with just like fresh faces for another season if we take a few weeks off, you know?
Yeah.
Well, you guys took the words right out of my mouth, because my next question was, okay, so how can you keep the audience engaged and relevant? And you go right to a Twitch stream. And I did watch a putt stream, at least most of it. Because I was like, okay, I was looking through your videos. I was like, okay, Lego Star Wars, and that's great. But, oh, putt, hell yeah. Like, I was really like yelling at you guys, no, grab the hot chocolate. You're going to need it. Grab it, because I know that game inside and out. It's like the Humongous Center team is a team.
I will say I'll do that on purpose. I did that on purpose, was not take the cheese squiggles early.
Oh,
because I knew people were going to be like, you fucking idiot. You need that. You'll need that for later. It's like watching a horror film. It's like, don't go in there. Like, take the cheese squigglies. He's going to murder you.
It worked. I was just like, you got to do all this. And like, no, there were a few tech issues, but that's just going to happen when you do live entertainment. Like if I'm having tech issues right now when we're pre-recorded, but I'm figuring it out and I'm solving them. But how do you stream? Like what software platforms do you use? Because that's what I was wondering, because we could go live with this setup right now, but I'm always curious how other people do it. Granted, this setup right now is not cheap.
Yeah. So when we were doing, not about Twitch, but when we were doing our live shows early on in the pandemic, the Panda Express, we were doing I think it was called StreamYard, which is a very simple, easy, like user-friendly system that let you just, you know, kind of like signing onto a Zoom call, but then you can also put a picture up and you can change the layout of everyone's cameras and everything like that. So that was an easy way for us to kind of just do something, because we were kind of just like, we got to do something. Like Justin was still in New York. Or he was, you might have been back home. I was down
in South Carolina. By the time we were doing the live shows, I was down in South Carolina staying with my parents when the whole Panini, you know, was in full kick.
So we didn't have the optics for, you know, the platypus time. So we were trying to figure out all that stuff. So doing that, the StreamYard thing was a very quick, easy way. I think Justin actually found it through a friend. And then when we started doing Twitch streaming, I was using Twitch Studio, another very user-friendly way of just putting on your cameras, putting on, like I had a Zoom call of just Justin, and I used that as his camera input on the Twitch stream. And I had in the back of my mind the whole time was OBS, but I just didn't have the time to learn it. And I put the game on, simple, easy peasy. I highly recommend it for anyone who just is trying to get started, just so they can understand and get a good feel with, you know, streaming, and if they like streaming and if they, you know, want to keep doing it. Eventually though, once we took the break from Twitch, I started sitting down and kind of playing around with OBS. And there's a lot more stuff you can do. You can add frames to you can download like PNG, like animated frames for yourself, put into cameras. You can crop your Zoom call so it looks better and there's not the weird frame around it. So we're on OBS now. I think that's a really easy way of getting on. It's really, it can look daunting, but in all honesty, it's pretty easy to learn and figure out. It's
also pretty user friendly. Like we use OBS for the wrestling podcast. The program used right now is VMix, which is like OBS plus on steroids. There's so many different things I can do. But you know, I like OBS. There's something I like OBS. So streaming is a good idea. Would you ever want to do the podcast to be live with video? Or would you want to incorporate a video aspect into the actual podcast? So, like, what are your future goals for Pitch This?
Oh, okay. I'll say this. I don't think, I mean, after doing the live shows, it's a bit hard to have the same quality as when Adam has the ability to edit, right?
Yeah,
Right.
I agree.
I think that the final product is much more marketable and much more listenable when it's edited rather than like when we have the live shows, you know?
Yeah.
And like the live shows, they had their merit, like they were very fun and stuff like that. But you're right, like there's also more of a chance for things to go wrong. And like, you know, then you have to be like, fuck it, you know, we're live and just figure it out. And that can be fun, but also, you know, is much more strenuous. What I'll say, something that I've really wanted to get started for a while is finding an animator of some sort to basically do like animated bits for some of the things, like for some of our scripts or for some of the bits that we talk about on the show. Like just like, you know, short 3 to 5 minute things that we could put on like YouTube that are just like, you know, animations of us either talking or like just the worlds that we create in the bits that we talk about and stuff like that. Like the Ghost Money one that, you know, just got into this like whole world building thing that we weren't expecting. That I think would be really funny to have a visual over. But I think like an animated something like that would be more interesting than just us, you know, on screen.
Yeah, I think that's the next step. As much as I would love to have more content, more visual content, I think the quality of the podcast would be in jeopardy because it is an edited show. That's just what it is. And I think you know, the live show was fun. There were definitely the hiccups as well, but for sure, we've also in the past we've tried to meet a deadline. We tried to say like, let's actually consciously try to record within an hour 15. And then we're not just, you know, the problem is that we're not just like, it's in the back of our mind the whole time as we're trying to have fun and not think about it. And then, you know, we allow less opportunity for those amazing, hilarious moments to present themselves because we're trying to move on to the next segment or the next fun fact. So, you know, it costs us more time in our day. It costs us more time in the edit in post, but it pays off in the final product because I then get to select and highlight those funny moments in the episode, you know. And I'm not saying like we cut out like, you know, tons of things. Sometimes we cut out just like we might cut out like a discussion that is just not relevant anymore in everything else. But it's just a good way to make sure that those good moments are in there. And, you know, sometimes we always search for a good cold open for the top of the show as well. So that usually comes from some part within the episode recording, not just like a discussion before the actual recording. So there's just a lot of steps to it, and leaving it open-ended so that we can then cut it down is, I think, more beneficial to us.
All right. Love it, guys. I'm very excited for what's next for your podcast. I'm very excited for season 3. By the time this episode of APS is released, I'm sure season 3 will be out. But until then, where can they find you guys? This is the part where we all do the plugs and before I say goodbye. So Justin, the floor is yours. We'll kick off with you, where they can find you on social, the show, and anything else you want to share.
Oh, I'm going to pass this to Adam because this is how we do it on the show. Go ahead.
All right. Passing over Adam.
That's my mic, buddy. Sorry. So yeah, we're on social media. You can find us on Instagram at Pitch This Pod. I'm a little rusty. It's been a while. And you can find us on Twitter at Pitch_This_Pod. And we're also on TikTok at Pitch This Podcast. And you can find us on Twitch at Pitch This Podcast as well. Link in bio and any of those accounts to check out the episode, check out our Twitch account, to check out our game streams, which are on YouTube. So find us there on all those things. And yeah, that's all I got to say.
All right, guys, I want to thank you so much for being a guest on the Ambiguous Podcast Solution. If you are out there with a podcast of your own and want to be a guest on the Ambiguous Podcast Solution. Head over to ambiguouspodcastsolutions.com and head over to our services tab and book your appointment. You can be interviewed by myself, the founder of Ambiguous Podcast Solution, Jared Laverne, Hofstra alum, by the way, the CEO of Ambiguous Podcast Solutions, or anyone else from our APS team. Just put it on the calendar. I'd love to talk to you. Talk about your podcast and what we do. As you can see here, we have a lot of fun. It helps. I know these two. Being from college, you can find me and all my shenanigans at Will Tarashuk, T as in Thomas, ARASHUK on the gram, Facebook when I post. And then, most important place is APS podcast on Instagram and ambiguouspodcastsolutions.com for all of our services, all of our shenanigans, and all of our fun. We'll be back next time with a brand new podcast to talk to and possibly, just maybe, a brand new host. But until then, ladies and germs, we'll keep you next time. And check out the Pitches podcast. They're fucking amazing. Oh, hello, everybody. It's me again, founder of Ambiguous Podcast Solutions, Will Tarashuk. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Ambiguous Podcast Solution with the Pitch This podcast. These two are absolutely amazing. It was phenomenal to talk to them. I enjoyed it. And I hope you did too. And if you did, make sure you go over and check out their page on ambiguouspodcastsolutions.com. Shortly after this podcast was recorded, they decided to join Ambiguous Podcast Solutions. Get a page on our website. Go over there and check them out. ambiguouspodcastsolutions.com. If you want something very similar, hop on the show. Love to have you on there. Reach out to me, Will, at apspodcast.com. I'll get you on the podcast and we can talk about the future of podcasting, your podcast, my podcasts, and anything in between. Check out their podcast, Pitch This. A lot of fun, phenomenal. And click down below to check out their podcast as well as anything else they have to offer, as well as us and another video. It's all right here. AmbiguousPodcastSolutions.com.